if Donald Trump just skips all the debates, is that a problem? And most people said no. Most Republicans said no. Certainly the Republicans who support him absolutely said no. And then the other thing that it said that was really interesting was, you've heard a lot of Republicans who want to defeat Trump say the field needs to narrow. It needs to get down to one person so one person can challenge Trump one-on-one. That's the way to win. Well, that assumes that if everybody else gets out, their supporters are going to go to this single unity anti-Trump candidate. What we saw in the Des Moines Register poll when they asked, well, what if Ron DeSantis were no longer in the race? Who would you support then? Well, 41% of them said Trump.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with Chief Political Correspondent Byron York. And Byron, much talked about poll came out from Iowa, the Des Moines Register poll that shows Donald Trump with a significant and enduring lead over the rest of the field.
Yes, that's not really big news. Obviously,
Right.
Trump has been leading by a huge amount for a good long while. A couple of things were interesting. Ron DeSantis had actually fallen some. Trump was in first place with 43%. DeSantis was in second place with 16%. The last time they did a Des Moines Register poll, he had been at 19%. So he spent like 3 months kind of just sliding down. But the bigger news was Nikki Haley had jumped up. A few months ago, she had been at 6%, and now she had jumped up 10 points to 16%. So Haley and DeSantis are tied in second place. Everybody else is just out of it. There were a couple of really interesting things in it. First of all, the Des Moines Register asked, if Donald Trump just skips all the debates, is that a problem? And most people said no. Most Republicans said no. Certainly the Republicans who support him absolutely said no. And then the other thing that it said that was really interesting was, you've heard a lot of Republicans who want to defeat Trump say the field needs to narrow. It needs to get down to one person so one person can challenge Trump one-on-one. That's the way to win. Well, that assumes that if everybody else gets out, their supporters are going to go to this single unity anti-Trump candidate. What we saw in the Des Moines Register poll when they asked, well, what if Ron DeSantis were no longer in the race? Who would you support then? Well, 41% of them said Trump.
Right.
So if some of his current opponents drop out, they'll go to Donald Trump. So that kind of blew a big hole in the let's all unite behind one candidate to defeat Trump idea.
Do you see any signs that some of the candidates who just have never had a moment, never broken double digits, the Tim Scotts of the world, for example, at what point do you think we start to see that winnowing happen?
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about this. The Iowa caucuses aren't till January 15th. But if you look in the past, you see a significant number of candidates who drop out by January 1 of the election year. They never make it to the Iowa caucuses. And we could see that. Certainly Scott has been perhaps the most disappointing Republican candidate, because people do like him. They find him personally appealing, and he just didn't catch fire at all in the race. He's got a lot of money. Larry Ellison, the tech mogul, has given him zillions of dollars, his super PAC zillions of dollars, and he can keep going. But at some point, it's going to seem kind of like out of it. And clearly, I think what's happened is you really have a race in which you have Trump, DeSantis and Haley, and then everybody else. And the pressure on everybody else to get out is going to increase significantly.
There's been some, hope among Republicans who don't like Trump that the legal challenges will slow or stop Trump. And one very controversial legal issue that Donald Trump is facing, is not criminal, but legal, is in Colorado with a 14th Amendment lawsuit. Tell us about that.
Well, it's been a kind of a fringe theory among anti-Trump types in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, or wherever they might be, that the January 6th Capitol riot was an insurrection. And the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which was passed right after the Civil War, bars federal officials who've taken an oath to the United States, who then engage in insurrection. It bars them from ever holding office again. So the idea is, well, Trump engaged in insurrection, therefore he can be removed from the ballot in 2024. He's ineligible to run for president. And there was a law review article that's come out in the past several weeks, deeply researched, very extensive, 100-plus page law review that said not only is Trump disqualified, but they called it self-enacting. It's already done. So these law professors were saying, all you have to do is have a state official, like the Secretary of State in any given state who oversees elections, just take Trump off the ballot. No judge involved, no court involved, no legislature involved. You know, and obviously for people who want to get rid of Trump, they thought this was a great idea. Interestingly enough, no Secretary of State in the country, regardless of how anti-Trump they are, has wanted to just step out and do this on his or her own. What we're seeing right now in Colorado is a trial in a lawsuit that was brought. A Washington-based group organized it, got some local plaintiffs in in Colorado to sue, and it's just a judge trial. There's no jury, and in about a week, the judge is going to decide whether Trump can be removed from the ballot or not. And if she decides that yes, he can, and she is a Democrat and a Democratic donor, the Democratic Secretary of State might go ahead, deadline's January 5th, and remove Trump from the ballot on the basis of this judicial decision. And at that point, who knows what is going to happen? There's going to be a lot of legal wrangling. It's going to get to the Supreme Court. I don't think that some local official, a state official, can act on this legal theory and take the leading presidential candidate off the ballot without this working its way all the way up through the courts. If
the judge does rule in favor of what this leftist group is wanting, do you think that opens the floodgates for other secretaries of state in blue states?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's 26 states, I think, where there's various actions, some more serious than others. There's one in Michigan that's so serious that Trump himself actually sued. He tried to get ahead of the game here and sued to bar them from taking him off the ballot, because it's the same situation, Democratic Secretary of State, Democratic governor. You're gonna, these are people who's politically would probably like to do this. But as I said before, no Secretary of State has had the gumption to say, okay, I'll just take Trump off the ballot on my own authority. They're not willing to do that without a judicial decision, a legislative decision, something official to tell them that you could take such a momentous step.
Well, Byron, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You can get more writing from Byron by signing up for his newsletter, Byron York's Daily Memo, at washingtonexaminer.com.